Hey, it's Hunt. You found Hunt on Saints. We're talking black and gold football. Do us a favor. Hit the like button, share your comments below, and hit that subscription button so you can get all of our content. Enjoy. So we are in draft week, and it is time for the New Orleans Saints to embark on what I've called a very, 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 very important chapter of the future of the franchise, because this is not an organization that is in a position to upgrade itself through free agency in a significant way. Not this offseason, not next offseason. And in my opinion, the New Orleans Saints are not close to being a championship contender in the NFL. And so how do you change that? Because they were for over a decade. And it's not just because of Drew Brees. He's a huge part of it. But you can rekindle that pretty quickly if you do things the right way. Now, to do things the right way, the Saints are going to have to do them a different way than they have. They have long traded up, mortgaged the future to select one player. That has to stop this year in a big way. They've got to take picks and get young players and hit on them. And it's got to start in this NFL draft. And it's got to start in the first round. Now, I went through a pretty quick, admittedly, exercise grabbing mock drafts. I found as many as I could find from like reputable organizations. Say what you will about each organization or each person. It was not done to see who's right and who's wrong. It was more so to just get a national feel on where things are headed with the Saints. At ESPN, Jordan Reed's got Olu Fashanu going to the Saints. Field Yates has Olu Fashanu going to the Saints. CBS, Pete Prisco, Olu Fashanu going to the Saints. Now, Chris Trapezo from CBS has Amarius Mims from Georgia going to the New Orleans Saints. So another tackle, but a different one. But Will Brinson from CBS Sports, Olu Fashanu. John Breach from CBS Sports, Olu Fashanu. Then I go over to NBC, Kyle Dvoracek, Olu Fashanu, Connor Rogers, Olu Fashanu. Okay, we understand I just pulled 7 mock drafts, and 6 of them had Olu Fashanu, and 1 had the next tackle down on most people's board. So the general consensus is the Saints have a desperate need, and this is where they're going to go. We had a pretty good feel a couple of years ago on where the Saints were going to go, and they ended up with Chris Olave and Trevor Penning. And sometimes you have no idea. And I didn't hear anybody much talk about Peyton Turner, like Mark Davenport wasn't on my list. But that's where the feeling is things are headed. And that would be perfectly fine if the Saints took Olu Fashanu for me. I know if you've listened to Matt Moscona on our station after me, that's been his wish for a couple of months now. The question is now not whether or not that's a good pick, because we'll talk about that when the draft is over, and I think it would be a fine pick. What if it's not? What if it's not Olu Fashanu because someone trades up and into the top 10 to take him, or he comes off the board right in front of you? You never know what's going to happen on draft night, because you look at all these mock drafts, and if you look back on them 24 hours after the draft is over, you go, oh, well, we didn't know that was going to happen, or they were going to trade up for him, or that guy was going to fall, and that meant they were going to come up and get him. Like, you don't know. But for the purpose of this exercise, I'm going to go, what if they don't take Olu Fashanu because he's not there, or because there's another player on the board they feel like they need to have? Well, you don't figure Joe Alt's going to be there. It feels like the Chargers are a favorite there early in the top 5. What if it's J.C. Latham? Okay. You say, well, he plays right tackle. Fashanu's played left tackle. We need a left tackle. I'll get to that in a second. What if it's Talise Fuenga? He's another right tackle. What if it's Amarius Mims like Chris Trapaceau's mock draft? Well, those guys play right tackle. Like, we need a left tackle. Here's the deal. You're not drafting in this draft for the 2024 Saints. I know that's the fun way to think about it. I know that's the way that we've often thought about the New Orleans Saints, because they've been so close over the last 15 years that you're planning on your first round pick stepping in and making an impact on a division champion and a team that fights to win the Super Bowl. This team is not going to do that. You're drafting for the next great Saints team. Maybe that's 2 years from now. Maybe that's 3 years from now. Maybe that's 4 years from now. But if you tell me you've got somebody on your board that you think is Ryan Ramczyk, who never went over and played left tackle, but he played right tackle at an all-pro level, I don't care. We'll figure out left tackle as we continue to build this roster. It may not be completely fixed in 2024, and we may have to put James Hurst out there or whatever the case may be. And guess what? You're not going to be a great team. I'm not drafting for the needs of 2024. I'm drafting for the future of the franchise. So if that's J.C. Latham, if that's Talise Fuaga, if that's Amarius Mims, I'm completely fine with it. Now, if you start looking at something completely off the wall, which I think is a waste of a conversation, looking at some kind of linebacker or safety, which is completely asinine discussion, well, we'll start talking about it. But if you want to talk about Brock Bowers, I'll talk about that. Well, Brock Bowers doesn't address our needs at tackle. Okay, well, maybe you think he's the face of your offense. You can make him what Travis Kelce is, what Antonio Gates once was, what Rob Gronkowski was. And you can have him in your lineup for 10 years. Okay, I will live with that because we're not trying to address situations that arise in September. We're talking about the next great Saints team. I want them to take a tackle. I hope he can play left tackle because that's a really hard position to fill. And it's a very important thing to do. But the Saints have found a left tackle in a later round. Terron Armstead is a great player. It can be done. My requirements for the New Orleans Saints coming up on Thursday night in this NFL draft: do not mortgage future picks and draft for the future of the franchise, not to try to have a 2-game better record in 2024. Because I feel like that would be short-sighted and counterproductive. It's the way this franchise has run for the last 3 years, and it hasn't worked at all. And do not let the record from the New Orleans Saints in 2023 fool you. It's the worst schedule I've ever seen an NFL team play, and they couldn't get their head above water. They're a long way away. It starts Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. I want you to use a lot of picks. I want you to look at positions of need on your roster. But for the long term, when I talk about right tackle, you go, well, Ramczyk might play. He might not. And even if he does, do you feel really good about him playing in 2025? I don't. I don't care about 2024 right now. It's a hard thing to say when you bleed the black and gold. And I know so many of you do, and I love it. I love the passion. But you do have to admit that, like, it's a long way off. But it can get fixed because the Saints have done it in the draft before. They have hit on high round players. They have hit on middle and late round picks. And they're going to have to do that. I'll be just petrified if the Saints trade their second round pick, 2 of the 5ths, and a second next year to move up 4 spots to make sure they get Fashanu. Which that's the guy everybody wants. Give me that guy. Give me that guy. But you feel like you have to move up in front of the next team that wants to get a tackle. So now you've given away 4 assets for somebody that you don't know about anybody. The only thing you can know in the draft is how many options you have. And the Saints have been famous for limiting their options. It has to stop. I'm perfectly fine with J.C. Latham. I'm perfectly fine with Olu Fashanu. I'm perfectly fine with Fuenga or Mims, who play on the right side. Even Tyler Guyton from Oklahoma. I don't think you're going to take him at 14. But if you moved back and got more picks, gasp. If they moved back and got more picks, could you find a really good tackle there? I think you could. It's a deep tackle draft. If you wanted to move back, you can do it. I have no confidence the New Orleans Saints will do that. But we'll see. 2 rules. Don't mortgage the future and don't draft solely for the 2024 Saints. The Saints do that, you're going to see a guy here on Friday who's like, well, that's job well done. Keep it rolling tonight. That's our look at the Saints. We'll talk more about it with Sharif Ishak coming up in the bottom of hour number 2. All right, hey, it's on. Thanks for watching Hunt on Saints. Before you leave, help us out a little bit. Hit that like button, leave your comments in the section below, and hit that subscribe button so you get all our content right here from Hunt on Saints. We'll see you next time.